Text and typography are my favourite part of After Effects. One of the main draws for me to use After Effects was the ability to make beautiful, groundbreaking typography animations and how customizable text and typography really are. You can animate text in any way imaginable. I often use text in typography videos or ads that require a bit more explaining. You usually find this with software or service-based ads where stock footage and images alone just won't do it. You can make really scroll-stopping videos with bold text on plain backgrounds. We see this a lot on social media and I absolutely love making these kind of videos. For now, let's get a basic understanding of how the text tool works. So we're in After Effects. To add text, we've done a little bit in earlier videos, but we click the text tool at the top here, or we can just press Ctrl and T if we're deselected. So if we press Ctrl and T, we now have the text tool selected, and then just click in the middle of our new composition, and then that's when we can begin to type. So I'm just going to type typography to give a longer word for an example so that we can animate. And then if we select all the text by double clicking and go to the top right to align and composition, align horizontally and vertically, and now you can see we've got the text in the middle. And if you select the text layer, you can then use the selection tool, which is this tool at the top, or V is the shortcut for the selection tool, to then move the text around. And if you ever want to get back to just align to the middle, just simply hit align horizontally and align vertically. With our paragraph, we're just going to make sure that the text is set to centered text. Now, if you want to change the font of the text, you can double click the text to make it all go red, go up to the character panel, and then you can actually change the font from the character panel. So suppose we want to make this a light Montserrat font, we can just select all the text and click light. If we select half of the text and then we go to bold, we can actually make the text two different fonts, and we can change the size of the text as well at different points by just selecting the text that we want to change. If we select all of the text again and then start changing the size by dragging this font size icon left or right, it'll bring all the text back to being the same size again. If we've got two layers of text, so from pressing enter, one layer of text but two lines of text from pressing enter, if I highlight all the text, I can use the leading parameter to change the leading or the spacing above and below the text. And then when all that is done, I can go back to align and align to the composition so that all the text is aligned again. We can adjust the spacing between the letters of the text with the tracking value. So I could just select lesson at the bottom here, make this smaller and bring the tracking out if I wanted to. I'm not sure that I would want to do this, but just to give you an example, you could do that. Now, text has a stroke and a fill option. I'm just going to delete lesson for now. So let's make the Montserrat all bold again, and then align this to center. If I select typography by selecting the entire word and then click the no fill color icon here, it's going to remove the fill. So you can see there's actually two icons here. So let's fill this back with white using the color picker. If I actually click the stroke color behind and bring it forward, now when I select the color picker, I'm actually affecting the stroke. So first of all, let's click the fill color, and then let's click no fill color, and then let's click the stroke color and we select white. We can't see the stroke at the moment because down here the stroke width isn't set, but we can move that forward to 3, and now we have this nice looking outline text or stroke text. There's some more parameters regarding scaling, baseline shifts, but I don't really use these at the moment, so we won't go over those in any detail. There's a fake bold here, however, I tend to leave that off, and I also tend to leave faux italics off. You can use these, but I like to find fonts that actually have the bold italic, because there are some differences sometimes rather than just slanting the letters. So I won't usually artificially slant the letters, but you can do that if you like. And then there's all caps, small caps, superscript and subscript. I don't actually use these last two. In fact, I don't really use all caps, but you can change it if you want. So that's pretty much the text layout there. It's important to remember some of the animations. For example, tracking will be affected by paragraph, whether it's set to left or middle, but we'll cover that in a second. So that's all the basic part of the text tool. If we've selected our text and then we want to deselect because we want to do something else and we've got this text cursor, I press V to go back to the selection tool. So if I've got the text selected and I want to go back to the selection tool, I press V and it gets rid of my text tool. So you can see that actually switches at the top here, and that means when I click off, I'm not going to be setting up another text layer. So there are some default animations that we can do with After Effects, but I don't often use them. So if we go up to Effects and go to Animation Presets, you can see there's text and there's a couple of text animations in here. I really don't use these a lot. I think there's more customizability down in the animator on the text, but I'll just show you. Decrease tracking I use now and then, but again you can do this manually. So when I apply decrease tracking by dragging onto the text layer, if I press U when I'm in the layers menu in the timeline, it shows me any keyframes, so that you can see this is automatically being keyframed to decrease tracking. I'm going to drag these keyframes to the start, and I'm going to hold shift to snap it to the start of the timeline. So that's me tapping shift whilst holding down. So now the text starts like this. Just to be picky, I'm actually going to change this to Montserrat thin. I want a fill color and I don't want the stroke. So let's just turn these off. So we can select motion blur here, and this decrease tracking has a nice effect. All we have to do if we want to make the animation longer is drag it out, and we can actually click on decrease tracking and then go over to the tracking amount, and we can increase or decrease that depending on how we want the effect to look. And again, we'll go over speed graphs later, but we could make this animation faster or slower, but I don't want to confuse you with anything there, because right now we're just getting used to the text tool. So that's decrease tracking, one of the preset animations. Now let's look at a custom animation. This animator is how you animate manually. It's how that decrease tracking was made without the preset. So if we go down to our text and we just drop down text, I'm going to delete the animator because you won't have this. It's because we've used an effect. So if we go to animate, now you can see we've got a lot of different text options, a lot of different animation options. So we're going to do a simple one here that I use all the time. We can go position, and now if we bring the position down after we've included the animator, and then we go forward to 1 second, if we drag the start position up on the range selector, let's go back to the start, set a keyframe, bring the keyframe down to 0, let's go to the 1st second and then drag this up to 100%. Grab both keyframes and press F9. You can see we've got this little typography animation. So as you can see, this animator can get pretty in depth, and you're not always going to want this typography to be seen animating in. For now, just a useful tip, we will cover masks later, but let's go to 1 second where the animation is fully complete and press Ctrl Shift and N to add a mask, and now the typography will only appear in behind the mask in a nice ease fashion. And then if we want the typography to exit, we can press Ctrl and C on the first keyframe a few seconds later. Sorry, copy and paste the second keyframe. So between here, these are the same. And then go forward a second and copy and paste the first keyframe. And then if you want, Alt and right bracket to trim this layer down and drag the work area down and trim this composition to work area. And now we have a perfect loop-in text animation. The animator can get pretty in depth. This is probably a good time to show you Animation Composer, which is really simple. Let's take the new layer. Let's put typography again. This course is not going to be built around plugins. I'm going to teach you how to animate text further later on. But plugins are good when you're not using them because you can't do the job yourself. They're great when you need to speed up your workflow. So I've got a plugin here called Animation Composer, which does have a free option with some free presets. So just to give you a quick look at what this does with the 1000 text animation pack, if I go to transition presets and text here, I can animate characters, lines, words, and each of these has a drag and drop text animation. So to give you an example of what some of them look like, we can just click the grid up here. Let's just scroll down. You can see all these amazing transitions have already been made for you. And this can really speed up your workflow and make things start to look great. So let's just say we want to drag this onto the layer. I select my layer, and then I click this animation and just animate in and click apply. And it's going to add this animation preset to the layer. It'll take a little time to render, but you can see they're even rotating in and bouncing, and you get this great looking animation. So let's do it again. So Animation Composer, there's free presets. I'll leave the link in a resource guide for you, and I'll also leave a link to the 1000 presets, which will give you a lot of other options. So there's a few on here that I really like to use. So I really like this one for going out. So if we select the layer again, we can actually choose this as an out transition. Let's let it render up, and it's going to magically fix it so that it perfectly exits the animation by the end of my text animation. So let's let this render a second. Because it's pretty heavy duty, the animation, it just takes a little bit longer to render. And then we've got that out animation as well. So let's watch the whole thing. But we're not going to focus around using Animation Composer for this. I'll leave a little tutorial and a link and a resource guide showing where to get this amazing plugin in the resource guide. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.